the science which shows, the papers which show the most health benefits tend to be people who are eating about 300 grams of different fermented foods. So that could be just kimchi or sauerkraut, could be a mixture. But there have been plenty of things showing health benefits from as little as sort of 20 grams a day. Make yourself a nice jar of sauerkraut and have a spoonful. If you don't feel bad afterwards, have a little bit more the next day and build it up.
Welcome to the Lupus in Community Podcast. Real stories, honest conversations, practical support, and lupus broken down in clear, simple language. Whether you're living with it, loving someone who is, or just trying to understand, this is your place. Seen, supported, stronger.
Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to the kitchen. Yes, the kitchen. And you'll find out why I say the kitchen pretty soon. I'm Fatima, founder of Lupus in Community. And today we are doing something that I have been looking forward to all month. For our podcast listeners, coming to you live, joined by a chef, a jar, and some cabbage as well. And if you're listening later, welcome. As you know, this month I've been writing about redefining strength through adaptation, which led me to thinking about sauerkraut. See, the cabbage doesn't transform in light where everyone watches it, right? It adapts in a sealed environment, dark, cut off from oxygen, into something that is living and nutritious. So today we are doing something, we're making sauerkraut, because fermentation is one of the honest examples of adaptation and fermentation. And because our gut is part of the conversation too, when fermented foods hit our stomachs, they feed our microbiome, which makes our gut healthier and us stronger. Thank you, Claire, for being here. Please introduce yourself and what drew you to fermentation. I was telling people from your handle, I got to know that you're a classical chef and a self-taught fermenter, right? So what drew you into fermentation? Tell us about yourself and what you do first.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me. My background, I'm a slightly circuitous route here. My background's in newspaper journalism. And so I did that for 15 years and loved it, and then eventually took voluntary redundancy. And food had always been a great love, so I retrained as a chef. And I was expecting to go back into writing about food, or sort of back in journalism, but specialising in food, but had kind of fallen in love with the practical, hands-on, feeding people nature of it. So started my own catering company, and then started teaching, and then was asked to teach a fermentation class. And I'd made a bit of sauerkraut, a bit of kimchi, but I didn't know a lot about the background of it, about the science of it. And I thought, well, I really need to get to grips with it. So I started doing some research, and I fell down a rabbit hole and still falling, and here we are. So it wasn't an easy route. It was quite long, but it's been a fascinating journey.
Awesome. So Claire, tell us, what do we need to get started? How should we prepare? I'm not sure if people are set to follow along, but Claire has.
If they are, hopefully they've got a bowl of some cabbage. If they're not, then hopefully they can make it later, and we'll put online. We'll put we'll link to a recipe so everyone.
Right.
So I think what I want to say first is that this is what we call a wild fermentation. So this is relying on microbes that are in the air, they're on the vegetables themselves, they're on your hands, even if you've washed them, part of your skin's natural microbiome. So sauerkraut is a pickle. It's something preserved with acid, but unlike, say, a vinegar pickle gherkins or onions or whatever, we don't add the acid to the vegetable. For a ferment, what we're doing is we're creating an atmosphere where the lactic acid bacteria that are naturally in the air, on the veg, on our hands, where they can thrive, reproduce, outcompete all the other bacteria, the bad bacteria, and then those lactic acid bacteria create the acid, and that preserves the produce. So not only is it a live process, all those bacteria are working away, and those are also the bacteria that are going to give us health benefits later. But we're not adding acid, we're letting the bacteria create acid for us. That's the crucial difference with this kind of produce. So I hope if people have got their sort of roughly 500 grams of cabbage and a jar that's going to fit in. So here's my veg, that's 500 grams. Here's my jar. It doesn't look like this is going to fit in there, does it? But I reckon it will. So how do we get rid of all the bad bacteria and create that environment where only the good bacteria? I don't like to make moral distinctions about bacteria, but for the sake of simplicity, we'll call them the bad bacteria, the ones that might make things go off, might make us ill. So we need to get rid of all of those, and we want to keep the good bacteria, the lactic acid bacteria that are going to ferment this cabbage for us. So first things first, we add salt. And secondly, when we pack it in the jar, we are going to get rid of as much oxygen as we can. So the bad bacteria can't tolerate a salty environment. They won't be able to survive there. So we get rid of all of those. The lactic acid bacteria, they don't mind salt. And then secondly, the bad bacteria are what we call aerobic. They need oxygen to survive and reproduce. And the lactic acid bacteria are anaerobic. They don't need oxygen to survive and reproduce. So we make those two little tweaks to the environment. We get rid of anything we don't want. That means the lactic acid bacteria can thrive. They turn all the sugar in the vegetables into lactic acid, and that preserves it for us. But yet it's still a live ferment. It's still got those good bacteria in them that are going to help our guts. And I guess that's where that's sort of your interest in it, right?
Yeah.
So
and David,
sorry, say again.
Yeah, David says he has his cabbage ready. So yeah, we've got
someone
ready.
It's ready to go. So I actually ran out of cabbage, so I've topped mine up with a bit of carrot and celery and stuff, and we'll talk about that in a sec. And I've got my scales. So I know that this is 500 grams of veg. So, sorry. Put it on the scales. I'm going to have to take that out of sight, but you'll just have to trust me. So how much salt do we need to add? Now, we don't want too little salt is not going to keep things safe. Too much salt is going to make things really salty and not nice to eat. So good rule of thumb is about 2% of the weight of the vegetables. So with 500 grams there, that's 10 grams of salt. So I've got my salt, and I'm going to add that with the bowl on the scale, 10 grams of salt, and toss that through. So if you had the time, if you had half an hour to spare, you could just leave your veg sat there all salty. And when you came back, you would find that the veg had wilted a bit, and you had a little puddle of brine at the bottom of the bowl. Because we're in a bit of a hurry, especially since I was late, I'm going to keep massaging this. So anyone who has a stressful day, this kind of get the stress out.
And for our podcast listeners, Claire is just massaging the vegetables. If you can't see her, she's massaging the vegetables until the brine comes out.
So it's not long. It's like I've only been doing this for a minute, and I can already feel these veg getting damp. So the salt is drawing the moisture out of the vegetables. This is, for those who remember their school biology lessons, this is osmosis at play. Salt is pulling the water out of the cells of the vegetables. So we don't need gallons of brine here, but we want it to be enough water, like enough brine that it will cover the vegetables when we put them in the jar. So it's, you can see that I've already got some moisture dripping from my cabbage. So a little bit more massaging, and I'm going to have like a puddle, a kind of tablespoon or so of brine in the bottom of the bowl. That's all we want. So whilst I'm doing this, whilst I'm showing this cabbage who's boss, if anyone's got any questions, they can stick them in the chat. But what I want to explain is that you can do this with any vegetable, any hard vegetable that you can shred or grate, and you can add any flavours that you like to it. So I think sauerkraut translates literally from the German. It means sour cabbage, but you don't have to make it with cabbage. I've got cabbage here, and because I only had a little bit of cabbage and I didn't want to pop to the shop, I've got some spring greens, I've got some carrot in there, some onion and some celery as well. So this is going to be kind of a fermented coleslaw, really. And you could put any flavours that you want in there as well. You could do it all with carrot and add loads of coriander seeds, say, and fresh coriander. You could
caraway seeds.
Caraway seeds is really great with any sort of cabbagey thing, delicious. You could put fennel in there, and that kind of builds on that sort of anisey flavour. You could do red cabbage and beetroot, say, with like loads of horseradish and garlic in there, maybe some chilli. So like any veg that you've got, if you grow your own, like we're coming up for the time of year in the UK at least, where people are going to get gluts of things in their gardens, lots of courgettes and cabbages and so forth. So great to use up if you've grown, whatever you see in the market, if it's cheap. If you've got something, as I did, just a few things sitting going a bit floppy in the salad drawer of the fridge. So anything you like, you can make a delicious kraut from. So like the world is your oyster. It doesn't have to be cabbage.
You can add courgette, maybe what we call zucchini here.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Things like courgette are a little bit softer than cabbage. So I would say I would want something in there that's going to stay nice and crunchy. Which cabbage is good for, but then on top of that, softer leaves, courgettes, carrots, beetroots, whatever you want. And then any herbs, any spices, and garlic. So like all sorts of combos you can have. So now can we see this is really quite got a lot of moisture there. And if I tilt the bowl,
I see that. Wow.
At the bottom of it. That was just what, 5 minutes of
massaging.
David says he's got cabbage, fennel, and carrots. That sounds like a delicious combo. I'm a big fan of fennel. Ooh, some lemon.
He adds lemon too.
That sounds nice. That sounds very savory and light. I like the sound of that. So I'm now going to shove it in the jar. Here's my jar. And what I do, each handful. My little table a bit closer. Each handful I put in, really squishing it down. So we do that partly, so I'm going to be able to get all of this mixture into the jar.
Yeah.
So partly it's just let's get as much as we can. Let's be generous about this. But it's also about getting rid of any of those air pockets where the bad bacteria might be trying to get some oxygen. So shoving it in.
You said not to throw away the core and the first leaf of the cabbage.
Yes. Nice, well remembered. Thank you for the reminder. I will come to those in a sec. So here is my jar full. So I got it all in. That big mass of veg, and I'm going to pour in any brine. And then here comes my leaf that I did earlier. And I'm going to tear it. This is going to be our pickle weight. So I'm going to tear it roughly to the sort of a shape that will fit on the top of the jar.
And why?
So this is protecting the top of our ferment from the bacteria that need oxygen. So the bit that's most exposed to the air. So a leaf of cabbage, and then I've got my core, and that's going to sit on the top. That's my pickle weight.
Yes.
And then when I get my lid, the lid pushes on the core of the cabbage. The core of the cabbage pushes on the leaf, and that makes all the shreds, just going to do this over the bowl in case it leaks. That makes all the shreds, they're all pushed under the brine. So this,
Good.
my catchphrase, corny yet memorable, is under the brine, everything's fine. So
Oh,
that's what we want to remember. That's what keeps everything safe. So
yes.
before the fermentation begins, everything
Mhm.
is protected by the salt now. Everything that is under the salty brine is safe from the bad bacteria. And then all those bad bacteria get eliminated. And now only the lactic acid bacteria survive. And they then begin to digest the sugar in the cabbage and the other veg. They turn it into lactic acid. So then the pH of the jar falls, and that preserves it pretty much forever. So within a few days, it's going to be acidic. But until then, I want it all under the brine, and that's what the pickle weight is for.
And where do you keep it?
So yes, so what people are going to do with their jars now, or what I'm going to do with this jar, is keep it somewhere at room temperature. So we're in my study now, but I'm going to take it downstairs, put it in the kitchen. What I normally do is put it on like a saucer or a tray or inside a Ziploc bag or something, because I filled this quite full, so it might leak a little.
Right.
I'm going to put it somewhere where it'll catch the drips, and then over the next few days, there'll be some bubbles. You will see bubbles rising in the liquid inside the jar, and I'm going to burp it occasionally, just opening the jar and letting that gas out. That's carbon dioxide that's being produced. But don't worry, it's not like making home brews or anything for anyone who's ever done that, which can explode, or homebrewed ginger beer or homebrewed wine or anything like that, which can get very, very, very gassy and sometimes explode. It's like, it's not going to explode. It's just, you don't want the sauerkraut itself to get fizzy, because that doesn't taste very nice.
Right.
So we burp it, we let the gas out, and then you taste a little bit. So get your fork under that cabbage leaf, taste a few strands of cabbage, and see if it's sour enough. So there's no hard or fast rule. It's not like baking a cake where 30 degrees, 30 to 180 degrees. It's up to you. It's kind of, and it will, if it's hotter where you are, it will happen quicker if your kitchen's warm. If there's more sugar in the produce that you used, so carrots, say, have got more sugar in them than cabbage usually, then it will go a little bit quicker. So it's a lot of variables. So you need to taste it. And when it is as sour as you like it, so to your own degree of your own palate of sourness, then it's ready, and then it goes in the fridge, and then you can start to eat it. And it'll basically keep forever, but I hope you'll eat it quicker than forever. I hope you'll eat it, because it will be delicious.
It is so good. I've tried making sauerkraut, and I've succeeded sometimes. And I had a long break and decided, let me make sauerkraut. And I made a mistake and left it ajar. I thought, instead of closing it. And of course, I came back to see stuff growing on top, and I had to throw it away. And so that brings me to saying, a quick reminder, disclaimer, that you probably should be aware of how you prepare sauerkraut, right? And fermented food is not for everybody, too. Some people are allergic. They're allergic of the histamine contained in fermented food. So talk to your clinician or your nutritionist or dietitian before you try them, if you've never tried it before. And so, what would you say to someone who is managing chronic illness, gut issues, immune dysregulation, if they've never tried making or eating fermented foods or sauerkraut specifically? What would you say to them?
So I suppose two things is, one, don't be scared of it. And I think this applies to everybody, but I think specifically a message for people sort of managing difficult health conditions, because obviously
Mhm.
a lot to deal with in the first place. And I can see that starting with unfamiliar things, and especially things to do with sort of microbes and bacteria, like that
Right.
sounds frightening, right? So I would say, first, don't be frightened. There's the making of this is very safe. It's something people have done for thousands of years, sort of before we even
Right.
knew about microbes. I've been doing it for a lot of years now, and I've never even heard like an anecdote, like a cousin of a friend of your mother's hairdresser who got ill eating fermented vegetables. So you said things can grow on top, and you had to throw it away. But what I want people to know is, as long as it was under the brine, it's very safe. So if you see mold on top, you can scrape that layer off, and everything that was
Oh,
under is still good to eat, as long as it was
good
under
to
the
know.
salted water. And then once the acid's been produced, as long as it tastes acidic. So
Well, that's good to know.
you're not going to make yourself ill, and you're not going to poison your family. So the one thing I would say is, trust your nose. So the only things, the bad things you want to look out for are black mold or red mold. Get rid of that.
No, yes.
Pure white, fuzzy stuff is fine. Just scrape the layer off, and underneath
Mm-hmm.
is okay. It's a little bit brown or oxidizy on the top, ditto, you can scrape that off, and everything's fine underneath. So
All right.
don't be frightened of those things. And the other thing is, start small. So start with like a spoonful a day and see how you feel on that, because introducing these live bacteria into your gut,
Mm-hmm.
if you're used to them, that can have a dramatic effect. That can have like bloating and
Right.
pain. So even if you don't already have gut problems, that can be an issue for people. So start small and build it up. As you said, people who are sensitive to histamines, I think those are
Mm-hmm.
the people who really need to worry about eating fermented
You're
food, and
right.
to consult somebody. I think almost everybody else, there's a decent amount of evidence showing that it can help with a lot of different conditions, a lot of gut conditions, a lot of autoimmune conditions.
Mm-hmm.
But the science is quite young. So there might not necessarily be papers on each specific condition. So I would, take it very slow, start with a spoonful a day, build it up. The science the papers which show the most health benefits tend to be people who are eating about 300 grams of different fermented foods. So that could be just kimchi or sauerkraut, could be a mixture. But there have been plenty of things showing health benefits from as little as sort of 20 grams a day. So I would
Right.
make yourself a nice jar of sauerkraut and have a spoonful. If you don't feel bad afterwards, have a little bit more the next day, and build it up. Because
Uh,
it has been shown to help in lots of these conditions, and just
yes.
anecdotally, I've spoken to lots of people who have, irritable bowel syndrome or things like that, that it's really helped them. But yeah,
Yeah.
don't expect miracles immediately, and start small and slow.
Yeah. And I've read research too that has been, showing with even groups or clinical trials kind of thing, not a clinical trial per se, but that really shows the benefits of eating fermented foods. So, and if you don't feel up to it, you can always buy
Of
good
course,
brands. They're good brands, right?
there's
For
plenty out
those, plenty of good brands out there in the big stores here. I see many. Just check that there's no vinegar in it if you want the true fermented sauerkraut. You can get it there in Asian stores. You can get other
nice.
than sauerkraut, but kimchi or tempeh. What other fermented foods do you know of other than tempeh and
Yeah, so other things that are particularly easy to incorporate into your diet is kefir and yogurt is very
mhm,
easy to have a bit of that for for breakfast. And if you
Right.
don't eat dairy products, then you can get plant-based versions of those as well. The thing I would say is if you're buying your fermented products, make sure you're buying them from the fridge, where then they're live and they've got the live bacteria in them, the probiotics.
Okay.
Because there's three things you want for your gut health. You want the prebiotics, which is the fiber that the bacteria in your gut digest, and so that's in vegetables, whole grains, etc. You want probiotics, which is the live bacteria, which is in fermented foods. So, and that's kind of adding extra bacteria to the party. It's not quite that simple, but that's the easiest way to think of it, is increasing the diversity of your gut microbiome. So for that, you want live things. So the kraut or the kimchi or the kefir, it needs to come, or the kombucha, it needs to come from the fridge. If it's
From
on
the fridge.
if it's on the shelf, it will have been pasteurized to make it shelf stable. So all those bacteria have been killed. So you will still get benefits from it. This is really interesting. This is quite new science. There are things called postbiotics. So prebiotics,
Yes, I've heard of that.
probiotics is the bacteria, and then postbiotics is sort of dead bacteria and byproducts of the bacteria.
Yeah.
So even if it's been pasteurized and it's no longer live, it's no longer probiotic, it still has postbiotics. So it's still better for you than eating just those vegetables raw. And eating those vegetables raw would have been pretty good for you anyway.
Right.
So ideally get your kraut, your kimchi, your kefir, your kombucha out of the fridge, then it's live and probiotic. But even if you get it from the shelf, when it's not probiotic, it will still have postbiotics in it, which is still good for you. But the main evidence for health benefits is probiotics. So from the fridge is best.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And for our global listeners, I would also like to add some examples that we find in Nigeria and West Africa are the dawa, which is fermented seeds from the locust bean tree. So it's not really bean like the legume beans that we know of, but it's the seeds of that fruit coming from that tree that's fermented and is used as a condiment when you're making food. However, talking about making food, would that beneficial bacteria then be killed when you cook with it? That's a question I have for you.
Yes.
But
yes, unfortunately so. So if you are cooking with the fermented locust bean paste, or even with miso to make your miso soup or whatever, you will be killing the bacteria in it. Or if you're turning your kimchi into sort of kimchi pancakes or kimchi jjigae, spicy stew, you are killing probiotic bacteria. It's still delicious, and you've still got the prebiotics, and you've still got the probiotics. But if you are eating it principally for the probiotics, I would say keep the temperatures low, or have it as a side dish alongside your cooked meal.
I see. Well, we also in Nigeria and West Africa have other foods like nono, which is really like kefir. It's a thinned out yogurt drink that's fermented. We have others like what's now? It's a dried cheese called chickpea.
Oh, I want to try this. Yes, I've heard of it. I've never tried it. What does it taste like?
You've heard of it? Yeah, it tastes wonderful, crispy and tart. Yeah. So for our global listeners, I thought I should share that too. It's been wonderful, Claire. Thank you for sharing your craft with us. And I'm just so glad you're here, despite the delay I caused.
Sorry. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a delight.
And so also, in closing, because this is a podcast, I just wanted to say that this example I shared is linked to my adaptation theme, and that adaptation is skill, right? It is a skill that we can learn to transform ourselves when we're going or after recovery, because that's what I'm focusing on, to change into something different, right? If not better. We come back differently and learn to survive the world, survive what we've gone through. But also, I talk about boundaries, which is conditions you set and hold, and your pace shouldn't be considered slow, because the words we use shape how we see ourselves. So I would say that your pace is your rhythm, and nutrition, like what we showed today and many others, along with your intention, is what builds strength, I would say. So I thank you for joining us live. And if you're listening later, thank you. I would like to say that next week, I'm sitting down with Samantha, self-devotion alchemist. Yeah, I believe that's what she calls herself. We'll be sitting down to talk about all of this. Just to wrap up June, we wrote Declutter Your Energy together earlier in the year, and we'll be going deeper next week. So please don't miss it. You're invited to my live next week. So you can find this recording on Substack and on YouTube. Lupus in Community is also on Instagram rather, and the podcast on rss.com or wherever you find your podcast. Leave a comment and a review to help others find us. So Claire, we can find you where?
You can find me on Substack at clareheal.substack.com. My newsletter, In Good Taste, is a ferment or ferment adjacent recipe every week. And I'm on Instagram too as Sourpuss. So, or no, the Sourpuss, I think. So SAUER puss. So like sauerkraut. The Sourpuss.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. I do appreciate it.
It's an honor. Thank you for having me.
Until then.
That's our episode. Thank you for showing up. Your presence here matters. Share this with someone who needs it. Leave a review and find us on Substack or wherever you listen to podcasts. Your reviews help us reach more of the community. Until next time, stay rooted, seen, supported, stronger.